Welcome to the apex of sports ownership, the Apex Athletic Collective.
Welcome in, everybody. Special episode tonight, episode 50 of Instigate Success, building an ABA franchise. Thank you, as always, for joining us. I see we've got some guys in the chat already. Good evening, Bobby. Thanks for joining us again. I know you've been a supporter throughout, and we got a special episode 50. I've got like a little bit of a special outfit. So I've got my AB shirt on that I had for the All-Star weekend. I got this little extra necklace. It's actually like an alligator claw, I guess. But I got one of those for AB as well. Down here in Florida, we got plenty of like alligator typed things here. And welcome, Jason, as well. See you in here as well. Thanks for the continued support. And yeah, Bobby, he has been here since the creation of the Instigators. So I've got the shirt, the extra necklace. I put the grills back in. I had those in for the playoffs. Can't do the hair again. A little bit of a work conflict as on that part. But yeah, episode 50. Pretty crazy to see that we are at episode 50 already. That's a pretty special number, and we wouldn't have got here without all the support from everybody that's here every week and throughout the weeks and throughout the season as well. But we have a little bit of news we can share from this past week. But I'll throw that graphic up that we had, special episode 50. And because it's episode 50, I threw together a little bit of just a little montage, so to speak, for all the episodes. At least I believe all the episodes. There's a little 2-minute clip here with just a little snippet of every episode so far that we've had. And I mean, we could probably use this for just about everything this week, a lot of different things this week. But we have that big news graphic as well. All right, so we'll show that 2-minute clip here of a little snippet from every episode of the podcast so far.
Franchise, episode 1, Origins.
Just give me a team. Call the Instigators.
Yeah. No dead air.
And I want to make it the largest professional sports league.
Swoops.
Right, yeah, that is a first.
Yeah. Win our jersey submissions. So if you haven't
we want you to have a say. And
it'll go down in history as the ABA's best logo, I can tell you.
I was speaking to a guy in the mirror the other day. We do have some very interested players.
19, as you can see, seeds.
It's never too late. You might as well.
Dylan Ware, Alex Brown, AB.
I'm coming in the middle of eating shit.
It's like a real TV show.
Oh,
you all see that?
Hey, that tattoo's sick, bro.
Business card when you were there.
Yeah.
I still have it. Score of the first points in Instigators history.
Peanut, that's so cool, dude. Is now a movie star and time flies. We're almost
Called out just about every week he's been on the court. Corey is going to be taking over as this intern and volunteer.
little company down there in the bottom right too. I love
Rusty's first win as the coach, and it's $10,000 opportunity to.
He jumped over a person.
Yeah, record books as it stands, most points in a
Technical fouls from the bench, so you can definitely do that.
These semi-pro shoes, the Rusty versus Spacely, got grills in right now. First team, I'm sure everyone here. Final score wound up being 102 season for the Instigators. And
Not coaching next year, right? I decided to step in for
the All-Star game. Our big man AB, in partnership with the IBL,
Of it as a summer league for us, right? Like we're getting some
in Fishers, Indiana. Or if you're over in the Discord, you can always tag us in an extended look at a lot of these players is at noon, but stick around for the games in off mode. There's a Hughes in 2017. Pretty crazy to see the transformation throughout that first episode all the way to this episode here, episode 50. Definitely have improved on the technical side of things. I know the first maybe handful to 10 episodes, we really struggled with kind of figuring out how to get this whole streaming thing figured out. And then now we run it through StreamYard, and it's pretty seamless at this point. I also was a little bit of a late addition as well, so I wasn't even like an original founder of the Instigators. I actually joined as a member. So if you remember, they had that membership opportunity to join. I joined at that part. I was the first member to join as a co-owner of the Instigators and the Apex Athletic Collective. So honestly, I didn't even know when we started this. I was just watching it, but I didn't realize I was going to wind up being a part of it. And we've had great guests on in the past, fans and players, as well as we had the CEO of the ABA. But yeah, so lots of cool moments that we've had throughout the podcast. But yeah, so episode 50. Just wanted to, remember where we came from. Make sure we took some time to go over that. Yeah, and I appreciate all the comments here. Fun to relive the episodes. Um, great memories. And I see Bobby, you mentioned that AB gear. So I'm pushing. We're planning on eventually getting this in the shop. Let me see. I'll pull this off for a second. But yeah, hopefully we can get this in the shop sooner than later. But this was like the shirt I had made, kind of a promo for myself, I guess, when it came to that All-Star weekend where AB was in all of the different activities there. He was a starter in that All-Star game in Mobile, Alabama. He also was in that slam dunk championship, as well as the three-point contest. But yeah, so hopefully we can get that out. And if I could find enough pictures of other players, I'd like to try to design them for other players as well. But yeah, so hopefully those come out soon. And yeah, so episode 50, let's jump into some of the new content. But yeah, I just wanted to take the first, almost 10 or so minutes to go over, where we came from and hopefully what we can look to in the future. Um, if you're following us on social media, if you're not, I think this was over on our Instagram page. We've been exploring different ways to activate our social media, and it's definitely been improving over the past few weeks. Definitely shout out to Spacely. I know he does a bunch of our social media. He makes a lot of the posts, the shorts, as well as Frosty. He also helps out big time with that, as well as all of our other owners. But yeah, 30,000 reel views over the past 2 weeks on those reels we posted on Instagram. So they've been really big hits from the past few weeks. We've been putting up highlight clips of players. We've also been throwing shorts on YouTube. That AI camera that we got, the Pixelot camera, is doing an amazing job at helping us with those highlights. It makes it a lot easier for us. It helps cut its own highlights, kind of track like the players as well. So it's easier on our end to go through and figure out the highlights as far as the players go, narrow it down, and kind of trim these highlight reels a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently than we would have been able to in the past. That was one thing that myself and all the other owners, when we sat down in the off season, we were like, we want to put highlight clips out from the past season. It was just extremely difficult for us to sit down and watch all of the footage and kind of try to trim each one of those games to each player and combine them all. So this new AI camera does an amazing job, tracks the player numbers, and it cuts together different highlights with the players. So we just pretty much have to plug some stuff in. Normally we'll throw a little bit of graphics on top, a little bit of music in the background, and it makes it a little bit easier. and it's turned out really well. I'm hoping we can continue to grow that, but it's definitely a huge improvement so far with that, and we'll continue to put out highlights from our players during the IBL games, and then once we get into the ABA season, we'll definitely be doing it for that as well. And this past week we had different games than I had thought we were going to play. So I know on the stream last week I had initially thought we were going to be playing the Rim Ticklers. I know that one for sure. And give me a second here. I'll pull up the other team name from the past week. Orleans. So I had initially thought that was what the schedule had us listed as, was we were supposed to play Orleans and the Rim Ticklers. So we had graphics made up for those two games. And I've been making these IBL graphics for the teams, and most of these teams don't really have like official logos. So I kind of just make these logos, try to have some fun with them. And I didn't realize we were going to actually play the Wet Bandits and the Blue Thunder. So I made this graphic here. This is also like the new YouTube graphic for the game from the past week for Amateur Night. And if you haven't been catching us on Amateur Night, Monday nights at 9 p.m., Frosty and I, we sit down and we rewatch these IBL Gold Cup games. And once these Gold Cup games go through, we're looking at adding more footage from other amateur sports and other sports videos in the future. Basically, as long as it's not professional sports, and as long as we have permission from whoever's involved with the video, we'd like to be sharing that. So, if you have ideas for that, definitely send them over our way. You can do that on our website. I believe there's a little spot on there to get in touch with us. And then if you're on our social media, you can tag us there. Then in the Discord as well, you can drop some ideas in there. But so this past weekend, we played the Wet Bandits and the Blue Thunder. So here's the graphics I made for those two teams, because like I said, I didn't initially think we were playing those two teams, so they're both on the same thing there. But continued success for the Instigators this past weekend. There was a streak that ended, so we'll start with that first game, the Wet Bandits versus the Instigators. Again, that continued the win streak for the Instigators. We started off the IBL Gold Cup a little bit rusty, first time on the court with a lot of these players. And remember, we have both players that are officially signed with the Instigators for not only this IBL Gold Cup, but through the ABA season. We've announced several of those players to this point. Some returning players would include Joe Bird, our first ever signee, Chuck Bloom, the team captain from the past season, and we've also had players coming back for the IBL Gold Cup action, like JoJo Hart. AB's been there for a few games. He had a little bit of an injury, but he was back this past week, so there's a little bit of a roster update with that Gold Cup. And then we had some new faces, a couple guys that have signed with the team so far. Kevin Cameron, aka Stunna Boy, he's been in all of the games so far in the IBL Gold Cup. We saw Lance as well. He is a new signee for the Instigators. He played the past few weeks here in the IBL Gold Cup, but he is also signed for the ABA season. So we get an extended look at those guys, as well as some other guys that have like an extended tryout for the team as far as the IBL Gold Cup goes, with the hopes of signing them, or as long as they show out, we'd love to sign these guys for the ABA season. But those guys would include Rico Spikes, T, and Jackson. We've seen all those guys on the court throughout the IBL Gold Cup. This past week, we had a very famous member of the Instigators that came back for the first time in a while. This player actually left prior to the end of the season for the ABA season, but it was for a good reason. They actually were joining the Lebanon Leprechauns in a little bit of a higher league than us. So definitely nothing holding us back from letting him do that. Dylan Ware, number 4 himself, he had an amazing inaugural season with the Instigators, and he was I guess in town from what I hear, and decided to stop by and come and play for the Instigators at least one more time. Hopefully he'll do that again. But yeah, it definitely was good to see Dylan back on the court. And this was his third hairstyle for his time on the Instigators. So he had the braids, initially when he was on the Instigators, and then he shaved his head, and he kind of shocked everybody with that. Now he came back with some hair. Corey was saying that it's kind of Macaulay Culkin-esque. I haven't seen it in person, so I don't really know. But he continued where he left off and balled out for the Instigators. And welcome to see him back on the court. Definitely helped out with our slam dunks. Still had a couple of missed dunks, but he upped that total for the slam dunks, and Spacely threw out that idea, which we're gonna have to add here soon. For a dunk counter to see how many dunks we have throughout the games in these IBL Gold Cup games. But continued success for the Instigators, and yeah, Stunna, he has been a beast throughout this whole IBL Gold Cup. This whole time he's out of every player, I feel like he's got the highest motor. He just never seems to get tired, which is very impressive. And these games are a little bit different than the ABA games, where ABA, we've got 4 quarters, we've got media timeouts. We typically use our timeouts as well throughout the games in the ABA season. But these games are more like your college games, so it's 2 halves. And we don't really have a coach, so it's like up to the players if we want to use a timeout or not. So we saw a few times this past weekend, I don't think there was a timeout called in a half. So a lot of continuous play for these guys, no media timeouts, just straight playing. And then the halftime is also a lot shorter, so there's not as many breaks in these games. So for somebody like Stunna Boy to be always high motor, that's definitely something I think that's going to be beneficial once we get to the ABA season. Because that's something we always keep an eye on, is the stamina of the players. If we can continue the efforts that we have in that first half, and a lot of these games we've had in the Gold Cup have been back-to-back games or a little bit of rest. And when you're able to keep up what you've been doing, it's been been impressive. And this was our 5th straight game, if I'm not mistaken, with over 100 points in the Gold Cup, and it was our 5th straight win as well. And yeah, definitely lots of alley-oops in that game. We have a bunch of big guys. So with Dylan there, he's 6'7". Then we have Jackson is 6'10", and then AB obviously 7 foot. And I don't know the heights of everybody else off the top of my head, but I know those 3 guys are really tall, and they had some impressive dunks. I know Joe in this Gold Cup, he's had an impressive dunk as well. And I think Mike was actually throwing down some dunks throughout the Gold Cup play as well. So lots of big dunks, lots of alley-oops. Hopefully we get to see some more of those throughout this Gold Cup. And the Gold Cup is coming close to the end. This upcoming week, we'll go into it a little bit more, but this upcoming week is the final week of like the regular season of the Gold Cup Pro-Am. And then they'll go into a break for a week, and then the following week they'll do like the finals of the playoffs. They have a little bit of a bracket for that, and then we'll have the championship game between us and the highest team from the IBL Pro-Am. We got ourselves the Instigators. When I say we, are locked into that championship, being the only professional team in the Gold Cup. So that'll be a fun matchup, whoever we get to play against. I know there's been talks of hopefully a rematch between one of the teams that we lost to in that first week. I know the Woodpeckers are still undefeated, so that's definitely looking like one of the front runners to be in that championship game against us. Second game on the night, that also was in the Instigators' favor. Another victory again. That would make our sixth straight win in the IBL Gold Cup, and that's coming after the first two losses. So at this moment, we sit at 6-2. Obviously you can't get those losses back, but we got those losses out at the right time, I think. Get them out of the way in the first couple of games, and then don't worry about the losses after that. So 6-2, been on a 6-game win streak, and we've been pretty dominant, I would say, in those 6 games, and pretty nice margin of victory as well. We've been getting, around that 30-ish point margin of victory, which is pretty impressive, at any level. Obviously, we had that record-breaking one, which was, I believe, an 88-point victory. And there was the mercy rule in effect when it came to that game. This game is also one that, at the end, a little controversial. The mercy rule was put into effect as well in this. Now, why I say a little controversial is because it was close to the end of the game. Again, the same thing happened in that other game against the Freebirds, where the Freebirds, obviously, it's an 88-point game. They're not coming back, but they were good sports about it. We had no issue with that, and there's a few minutes left on the clock, so made sense. There's no way to come back from that. We've had a couple of these games, like I said, about 30-point, differences. But this one again in that realm, and a few minutes left, and they, went into that mercy rule effect. Now, why it's controversial is because we had 99 points. We were on a streak of 5 straight games with over 100 points. Now, because we had that mercy rule jump into effect, it prevented us from hitting one more basket, one more shot, and we would have had that streak continued where every single game that we've won, we've had over 100 points. Instead, now we might have to change that to say 99. So we're 1 point under that 100. But the 3 digits always looks nicer than the 2 digits on that scoreboard. But realistically, it makes sense because they weren't going to be able to come back. But it's just aesthetically, it looks cooler on the graphics. It looks cooler on the promotions when we say that. But either way, the Instigators find themselves at 6-2 in the Gold Cup. This is the final weekend coming up, and then we'll jump into the championship in a couple of weeks. But let's see what I've got up next here. Oh, yeah. So tonight we also had, again, we'll throw that graphic up there because we might as well do this for a few different things. It's the 50th episode, and we've got a few different things to announce here. So another big news thing for tonight's episode was that the Instigators found themselves in a 3-on-3 backyard tournament tonight. So I think they went live on Instagram not too long ago, if you had a chance to catch it, but they were playing in the backyard tournament hosted by D'Angelo Russell Foundation, and D'Angelo Russell himself was there in person at that game. So that was a fun experience. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I did see one of our owners was there, and I think I've got the picture on here with that. But fun for those guys. And I think Bobby did catch. He might have caught that. Yeah. So just a little short, but that was it was fun. Both the IBL game and this 3-on-3 tournament this tonight. They just did that. out in Louisville, Kentucky. So a little bit of a travel for some of these guys. But it was a 16-team tournament, and there was a cash prize on the line. And we had some of our top players go out here for that. And like I said, there was an owner out there as well. So you can see that picture there. We've got a bunch of our guys out there. Corey, aka Frosty, he had the opportunity to be out there. He, I believe, was the one streaming that on the Instagram. And you see there in the middle is D'Angelo Russell. So like this is legitimately an NBA player, for the Los Angeles Lakers, at least currently, with the Instigators. That's pretty crazy to think. We have a team that is partaking in a professional basketball. We're professional basketball players, but we're in an NBA player hosted tournament. So that's pretty crazy to see. And you can see a bunch of our guys there. Mike right there. I think he's the only one wearing his Instigators gear. But plenty of your favorites there, and a couple of those new guys you see in the middle. But pretty crazy to see us in that backyard tournament. May not have played out necessarily the way we wanted, but still a fun experience nonetheless, and definitely helps us grow the Hoosier State Instigators brand, which is always, what we're trying to do. So not really, kind of like that line, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Even if we don't win that tournament, it's still good to get some publicity from that tournament. And anytime we can be associated with an NBA player, I'm sure that helps out, being that we're a professional basketball team. But yeah, so that was fun. I'll definitely have to keep an eye on that, and whoever winds up winning that, we can cover on that next week, but I'm not sure exactly when that'll wind up wrapping up. But yeah, it seems like Jason caught that as well. So yeah, that other team started hitting a bunch of threes. They also were rebounding a little bit better than us. And I think that is what made that difference there. But yeah, good exposure for the team. Definitely I think that's going to help us out at least, maybe pick up a couple of followers, and hopefully they'll be joining us here on the podcast in the future, or joining us for amateur night. And then once we get to our live game streams, I'm sure they'll be joining us for those as well. But a fun opportunity for us nonetheless. And let me see what's up next. I think, like I said, I'm going to be using this big news thing a bunch of different times tonight, because we do have a couple of big announcements that we had for this past week. So another big news for this week is we announced a home venue. So we have that new home venue. We had announced in the past that we were coming to Fishers, Indiana. Again, shout out and thank you to Clinton, Indiana, and the Clinton CRC, as always, for being the inaugural and the first ever, Hoosier State Instigators home venue, home city. That's definitely something that's always going to be a part of our history. There's no way we can ever take that away from our history. So, always going to be remembered from that first season as the Clinton CRC, Clinton as the hometown of the Hoosier State Instigators. And, then we've got Bedford, Indiana. That's where we've been playing a lot of our games at the Crossroads Community Church. That's become almost like our second home. But we had announced during this offseason that we were moving and making our new permanent home at Fishers, Indiana. It's a growing town from what I hear. It's not too far from Indianapolis. I did a little bit of a breakdown thing from the airport, to see how much closer it is for me if I fly in. And if I drive, I did the math for that. It's also like basically the same. If I drive from Florida to Indiana, it's basically the same regardless of where I go. So driving, it's about the same, but flying, it's actually a little bit closer. It's about 30-ish minutes away from the airport. And from Clinton to the airport, it was about an hour and a half. So it saves about an hour, if you're flying into the airport. But new home venue, has officially been announced. You can use Google Maps, check it out, read the reviews and such. But the new venue is the Best Choice Fieldhouse out in Clinton, Indiana. One of the cool things I saw, I'm not local to the area, so that's why I said, use Google Maps and such to try to see what you can for that. But one of the cool things I saw when I did that Google Maps is the arena has these two like giant basketball hoops right outside of the doors. So you've got these two giant basketball hoops, welcoming you to to our new home court and home venue. A little bit of a different type of venue than the Clinton CRC. The Clinton CRC was kind of like that historical old school basketball feel. You had the hardwood, you had the bench seating, and the benches were all old hardwood, and then the brick building on the outside. That really memorable historic type feeling with the Clinton CRC. This is a much different vibe. It's a little bit of a different venue atmosphere. Instead of it being that one big gymnasium, this has a couple of different courts, a couple of different setups within the venue, and the seating's also going to be different. So I look forward to being there in person myself, and I definitely want to see this. I definitely I'm excited for those giant basketball hoops outside of the arena. It's always really cool to me, like I guess they're gimmicky, but like those type of things to me just seem really cool. But different layout as far as the fans go. So instead of it being like that bench seating, it's going to be more of kind of like a standing room and a limited seating area. And some of that had to do with our attendance from last season. We weren't really at the point where we could fill out a whole venue like the Clinton CRC week in and week out. So we went a little bit smaller on the size of the court, and the seating for the fans is a little bit it's less than what we had with the Clinton CRC, but it also will help provide, I think, a little bit more of like a tight knit feeling. That way we're not as spaced out, and it kind of makes more of that atmosphere that we saw building within Clinton from last year, for all those Instigators fans that were able to come out in person. Yeah, it's definitely the best choice. I mean, that's in the name, so it's definitely it is the best choice. We're really looking forward to that. But the other thing about the new venue is we're still keeping a lot of our old traditions. So we're still going to have the kids on the court for halftime, and we are also going to still have the players interacting with the fans after the game. So two of the most important things, I think, as far as the fan interaction goes in person for those games, we are still keeping that. Um, and you see there's a little bit of a teaser on there as well. So the season actually starts a little bit earlier than last season. So if you remember, I think last season started in November. Um, but you see on that graphic there, we actually have announced that it is a little bit earlier. It's in October. The cool thing for that is that means there's going to be a Halloween game, or a game somewhere in the realm of Halloween. So that's always fun. I think Halloween's one of the cool ones that you can have like different themes going on with. I'm sure we'll have something cool as far as themes go for that. Um, and yeah, I do agree with that for sure. So I do think it's going to help with the camera angles. One of the other things is we've got that new AI camera, and the other thing is we wanted to make sure we had a place that had stable internet connection. So when we stream these games, looking forward to. It should be a much improved streaming experience with that AI camera. It's going to track the ball a lot better. Last season, always shout out to Ronan on this because it was very difficult, and I know he did this every week for the camera. He shot the camera, but the camera was hooked into the laptop, and the laptop streamed the footage that we were getting from the camera. But when we did that, it actually made the screen on the camera black out, so he couldn't see what he was streaming on the camera unless he had or he was looking at the laptop. And if I was in the venue or somebody else was running that laptop, he wasn't able to see what was on that, and he had to kind of just go based off of what we were judging off of. And that was impressive that we got the good footage that we got throughout the season. But yeah, so this definitely helps out with that. And being in a smaller venue, it's also going to help out with the footage. And I see, yeah, you're asking for some pictures of the venue. Let me see if I can pull up what I was referring to. So I'll just do like a Google search here and then share my screen for just a moment to give everyone here an insider look here. All right, so here are the big giant basketball hoops that I was talking about. So I've got this picture pulled up a little bit bigger. You can see there they've got the two big giant basketball hoops, giant basketball as well in front of the venue. And then you can see here they've got a couple of different setups. So this is one of their courts. You can see on here they've got multiple courts setups as well. And there. And here's a different aspect as far as the look. So you can see how the sidelines are set up a little bit different. I'm not 100% sure on which court we have, but you see, so they have some bleachers there and there's some standing room as well. But it is a little bit of a different setup. Definitely a little bit smaller than the Clinton CRC, but nonetheless a fun venue that we are looking forward to. In our second season. Also, a promo going on. You see with that graphic, you can get your season tickets now. So we're going to be having those home game individual ticket sales up soon, but we do have a special going on for all 10 of our home games. $89.99 gets you access to all of those home games. Become a season ticket holder for less than $100. That's pretty crazy when you think about it. You can go to professional basketball game 10 games for less than 100. That's less than $10 for each game. That's about, we break it down to $9 a game. But it'll be fun. Like I said, I'm definitely, the first time I go there, I'm going to get some pictures in front of those giant basketball hoops. But it's it's closer to Indianapolis. It's a growing area from what I did with the research on it. I think Corey lives out there, so Frosty has a little bit of an inside access to that area. But more connections, at least for our guys out in Indiana. They're also closer to this area, and hopefully that can help with some of our sponsorships as well. Being in a bigger area this year, I think the census was like about 100,000 people compared to a few thousand people in Clinton, Indiana. So I'm definitely looking forward to it, hoping we can continue to expand in the future. But lots and lots to look forward to in season 2 for the Hoosier State Instigators. But yeah, so that's another big news announcement for this week on our 50th episode. We wanted to have a couple of different big announcements for the Hoosier State Instigators. And we could throw this on there too. We might as well just, like I said, use that big news announcement. Our next big news thing is kids camp. So, to wrap up our time in Bedford, Indiana, we are going to have a kids camp at the end of July at the Crossroads Community Church in Bedford, Indiana. That's where we've been playing all these IBL Gold Cup games. We played that exhibition game against the Shuckers out there. And we also had that first playoff game, play-in game against the Indiana Legends at the Bedford area in the Crossroads Community Church. But yeah, so a kids camp open to anybody between the ages of 6 and 14. And this cool little graphic, Corey actually made that little Instigator logo, and it's going to be on all of the kids' t-shirts. So anybody that signs up for this kids camp will get a special limited edition Hoosier State Instigators Kids Camp t-shirt. It'll be an exclusive t-shirt to that kids camp with that special Instigators logo on there. But yeah, open to anybody from the ages of 6 to 14. We'll have our players out there. It'll be a fun time for these kids to learn some basketball skills, hang out with their favorite Instigators players, and it also helps us build that relationship that we really want to build with the community in Indiana. And the fee for this is only $40. So anybody that's interested in that, definitely go on our website. We have links up on the website, on our social media as well. I think we have some direct links attached to the post related to this. But the thing I think is really cool is that commemorative T-shirt. This is a special T-shirt that this is like, if you're a young fan of the Instigators, this can be like your exclusive merchandise that the adults aren't going to have. So for the whole season, you can be the only one with that type of merchandise. So that's a pretty cool thing coming up in about a month from now, a little bit less, literally 1 day less than a month from now. But yeah, at the end of July, we will have that. And I think I forgot the graphic for the other thing. Let me see. I can probably pull it up in a second here because I'm pretty sure it was on last week. Yeah, this should be it. So our we'll continue this trend of the big news announcements on here. Let me work on getting that graphic up. We also announced another tryout, and this was a little bit of a teaser. If you've been paying attention to these announcements we've been putting out, we actually kind of announced where we were playing before we officially announced it. It's at Best Choice Fieldhouse. So at that new venue, our official venue, this is going to be our first tryout at that new venue. July 20th, a little bit of a different time than we've been hosting these in the past. A night session here, 7 p.m. at the Best Choice Fieldhouse, the new official venue of the Hoosier State Instigators in Fishers, Indiana. As always, this is a professional basketball league, so you do have to be 18 or older to participate. And just be aware, this is a professional league and professional contract, so I believe it would deem you ineligible for any kind of amateur status when it regards to like college basketball. Just something I throw out there. We don't want to make anybody ineligible for that. But yeah, so anybody that's interested in this tryout, this is a big tryout because it's our first time at the new venue. Hopefully we can get the stream going for that, but I'm really looking forward to this. But it's a big one. This is not too many roster spots and going into the season open at this point. I think we've got 6 players signed, if I'm not mistaken, out of the 13 that can be on the roster when it comes to the game time. And yeah, tryouts at our new venue. So we kind of snuck that in without officially announcing that was our venue. But now we have that official announcement. But we're really looking forward to that. So we're actually at the point, last season at this point in time, we were obviously nowhere where we are now. But we're at the point where we may wind up running into both a double-edged sword, a good and a bad issue. We may actually wind up having too large of a player pool, and we're going to be potentially, this obviously is not the case currently, but potentially having more players that we want on the team than roster spots. Double-edged sword because obviously we want to have that kind of issue where we have so much talent that we have to, kind of narrow it down. But obviously, if we have guys that we want on the team, it's always, painful to see these guys leave. So still some open spots. More than half of the roster is open at this moment. But we've got players that have been playing in the IBL Gold Cup for us that haven't been signed to official contracts. And then, we're gonna obviously have some new guys showing out to this tryout here in our new home venue. And if you can ball out in our new home venue, obviously you're gonna have a good step forward, getting your foot in the door when it comes to that ABA season time. So big tryout here, $60 entry fee. July 20th, a little bit less than a month away. Again, we should have links on our socials anywhere we posted this, as well as on our website. So this is another big one. And I'm not sure, we might have a third tryout, but if we get enough players between what we have already and this next tryout, we can't guarantee there would be a third one, but our plan, at least initially right now, is to have one more tryout before the season. But in case we don't, if you're interested, somebody that's interested for being on the Instigators in season 2 for the ABA season, this is your shot. You got a month, about a month to get yourself ready, to plan stuff out. Again, this is a night session. I believe it's on a Saturday night. So hopefully it opens the door for some more guys, because hopefully that frees up some of the work related issues that may arise from that. But yeah, so January 20th, we have our next tryout, and our first trial ever at the new official home venue, Best Choice Fieldhouse in Fishers, Indiana. Jumping back to this week, though, our next game is tomorrow. As always, we've got these 2 games every week in June for the IBL Gold Cup every Saturday. And like I said, I've been making these graphics. I had a little bit more fun this week with those graphics. We're the Instigators, so I took that to heart, and I really, we're trying to instigate the other teams for this week, and we made a little bit of a cartoonish logo for them there. So they're the Fayetteville Lions is our first matchup. And these are our 2 latest matchups I think we've had throughout the whole IBL Gold Cup play. 1 p.m. That's our first game. We've had a couple of weeks where we've had 9 a.m. starts. So 1 p.m. game. I definitely, think that some of the players are going to appreciate the time to, sleep in, get a little bit more rest before those games. But yeah, 1 p.m. first game against the Fayetteville Lions. And let me see what their record is for their play in the Gold Cup. So the Fayetteville Lions are still looking for their first win. They are in that Central Division. I forgot to pull that up for this week, but we can see. So that Central Division I've shown in the past few weeks, they've had the opportunity for everybody in that division to continue to lose each game every week with how the schedule got set up. They've been able to accomplish that. I mean, I'm sure that's not an accomplishment for them, but it's impressive to see the odds behind that becoming a reality. So every single team in that Central Division still is looking for their first win. The Fayetteville Lions, the Freebirds, the Rim Ticklers, and the Showtime Lakers, all 0-8. So obviously, going into this final week of the regular gameplay in the Gold Cup Pro Am, um, definitely an extra incentive there for the Lions to get their first win against the Instigators. The one pro team in that tournament, and obviously there's a little bit of a rivalry as well with teams in the past named the Lions and the Instigators. So there's always that little extra piece to that. They spell their name a little bit different, and their graphic, at least from the one I made, is a little bit friendlier. But yeah, as always, these games are at the Crossroads Community Church, as has every IBL Gold Cup game has been, and free admission for all the IBL Gold Cup games. Like I said, we've had 9 a.m. Start. That's the first game in the morning. 9 a.m. tip. They have games running all the way through 4 p.m. is the latest tip. Free admission. You can, watch as many of those games that you want to watch. They're all free. So as far as the divisions go, so I can pull up I'll screen share for a moment here as well. So the IBL Gold Cup is a little bit different. So it's a Pro-Am tournament that we're a part of for the summer. And let me pull that up. All right, so here is their webpage, and they keep track of most of the stuff on here. So the Gold Cup, you got your Pro-Am, some more information on here. We can see the standings on here. BBB, who we played in that first week, one of the only teams that we lost against. They're at the top of their rankings in the East Division in this Gold Cup. Tied with the Wet Bandits, and the Wet Bandits were who we faced off against last week. So the only loss for the Wet Bandits came against us. So BBB and Wet Bandits tied at the top of those standings. Then Orleans, which we hadn't faced, and then basketball team who we had beaten, as well as the Tropics in that division. Then we've got the Woodpeckers leading the West. The Woodpeckers are the only undefeated team remaining in the IBL Gold Cup. And then you got the Limestone Legends, which we'll jump into that. That's our second game for this weekend is against the Limestone Legends. So that'll be a really interesting matchup between the Legends and the Instigators, to wrap up the final regular season games for both of those teams. The Legends obviously want to show that they're capable of hanging with the best, and their record shows it, but they're going to have to face off against the only professional team in this tournament. Then we have the Blue Demons and Have You Heard, 5-3, which we have both defeated them, and then the Blue Thunder, who we faced off against last week and won. And then we've got that division that I mentioned there, the Central Division, which still is winless, looking for their first win on the season. And then we've got the Instigators here. We're actually in like our own separate division within the IBL Gold Cup. The rest of the teams are amateur teams, so they have a limit on how many professional players they're allowed to have on those teams. I believe the cap is 3, if I'm not mistaken. And because of that, we got put into a separate division there. And because of that, we also got, and this is a great website if you haven't checked it out already. The IBL has the stats for, or the box score for the games. The only issue I think was this past week where we swapped out opponents. But if you scroll down here, you see you got the gold bracket on here. And the gold bracket, that is the teams with the IBL Gold Cup, the teams from the IBL who are going to qualify for the postseason, they're going to be playing in that gold bracket and the silver bracket, the two different higher levels. And then we've got the Super Cup. So the Super Cup here is the championship. That'll be the best team in the IBL against your Hoosier State Instigators. And whoever wins that, we'll jump back to the other stuff. Whoever wins that gets a pretty sweet looking championship belt, and we'll be able to hold up nice. Hopefully we will be able to hold up a nice championship belt for that Super Cup. But yeah, so that is not the first week in July. I think it's the 14th of July. So Sunday the 14th, and the other bracket games are the 13th of July. So this will wrap up the regular season for the Gold Cup, and then they'll have those playoff games that second week in July, and then the championship game the day after those bracket games to make it. And like I said, we had some fun this week, kind of instigating with those team logos. We had that cartoonish look for the Lions. We threw in a cartoonish look here for the Limestone Legends. So obviously, lots of different ways we could go with the Legends. So we went with like some mythical type creature there, and then limestone, kind of a play on words there, with the lime in the background and a stone in the front as well. But yeah, so that'll be our final game in the IBL Gold Cup. It's been fun. It's definitely given us a great look, an extended look at a lot of these players. And obviously we signed some of these guys after that tryout, with this extended look. We mentioned Kevin Cameron, Stunna Boy. Then we've also got Lance Styles. He came in a little bit later, but he's balled out as well. Then we had Jackson Stone, a former Indiana Lion, part of our Instigator squad in this IBL Gold Cup. He's had quite some impressive games, as well as Rico Spikes. He's had, especially in those first few games, Rico's kind of stood out. But these are guys still fighting to be on that ABA roster, as well as T. T was on. He's been a part of this IBL Gold Cup as well, throughout the whole entire time. Yeah, so that's what it's called. I knew it was some kind of mythical creature. It's a minotaur, so it's a minotaur. But yeah, legend. So that's what we went with for that. A little bit of fun with those graphics. But we can have that fun because the IBL Gold Cup teams are, they're amateur teams. A lot of these don't have like official logos, so it gives us some leeway to have fun with that. 3 p.m. though, that is our last game on the schedule for the IBL Gold Cup. But yeah, it'll be fun. Like I said, it's free admission as always for those IBL Gold Cup games. And that'll wrap up the season for us on that until we go into that championship game. Again, hopefully we can hoist the belt there, and get ourselves our first trophy, to have in that trophy room for the Hoosier State Instigators. And then we can ride off of our success from this IBL Gold Cup, hopefully into the ABA season when that does roll around. But after the Gold Cup wraps up, we'll have that tryout at our official home venue, the Best Choice Fieldhouse in Fishers, Indiana. And then we'll also have that kids camp to wrap things up next month in the Bedford, Indiana, at the Crossroads Community Church. So a full episode tonight. I think that does it. Just about everything for this week's podcast. Thank you again to everybody who's helped make this happen. All the support that we've reached, through the podcast. My headphones, I guess they timed out after an hour, but through the podcast, throughout this inaugural season, throughout the off season, throughout the Gold Cup, throughout everything that we've been going through with creating the Hoosier State Instigators. This is Instigate success. This is really like where we get the groundbreaking news, how we see the behind the scenes type of stuff. We try to be as open as we can, give people the insider access. That's the whole point of the Apex Athletic Collective, to create this into a more ownership like experience for the fans. And hopefully we've been able to do that, and we hope to continue to improve upon that. And that we look forward to the next 50 episodes. And yes, so amateur night, I believe that's what we're going to be doing for the obviously this week's games. We're going to be doing amateur night, but I believe that is the plan for at least the championship game. I'm not sure if we'll be doing that for those games that we're not in. But for that championship game, that is the plan to do that. And yeah, that's a pretty great idea. Let's see if hopefully we can work on transitioning some of those graphics that we have into some cool posters. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but I think this AB shirt, I think that'd make a pretty cool poster too. I know we had that kind of cool poster type graphic for the team as well last year once we got the whole team assembled. So I think once we get the whole team assembled for this year, I definitely think we're going to be planning on trying to make some posters, with the whole roster for season 2. But yeah, so definitely, continue if you guys have ideas. We definitely are open and welcome every idea. You can shoot them out on the streams here, on our social media, on our Patreon. You can comment on there as well, and through the Discord if you're a member over on the Discord. But yeah, thank you everybody who's been a part of this. Thank you, Jason. You've been in the comments all here tonight, as well as Bobby, for being part of this 50th episode. It's been great to be the host, and I look forward to continue being the host. And yeah, we'll continue to do those shorts as well. But yeah, we'll have more highlights, hopefully throughout this weekend. And Monday night, we'll be back here on the stream live, 9 p.m. Eastern for amateur night. We'll wrap up those last 2 regular season games for the IBL Gold Cup, myself and Frosty. We're really looking forward to that. And then, yeah, so I totally forgot that. That's a great thing that you mentioned that, because I completely forgot that. So we have this thing going on. If you're a member, we had that in that 2-minute clip, where we opened up the jersey vote last season, and we are doing the same type of thing this year, now that we have the ability to make a design with the shorts. So if you have design ideas, please send them our way. We'd love to do that same thing. We want to make a bracket with all of the ideas for the basketball shorts. We want both black shorts and white shorts. So if you have ideas for both of those or either of those, definitely send them our way. Again, you can reach out to us on our website. There should be an email address and some contact information for us there. On social media, you can drop it and tag us, and we'll definitely look at it. And then if you're on the Discord as well, you can drop them in there. But we're going to assemble a bunch of hopefully a bunch of different short submissions, and then do that same thing where we have a fun bracket and all of our Patreon members can vote on the bracket and choose what's going to be our new team shorts. But yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because I totally forgot to throw that in here with all the other things I had for tonight. But yeah, definitely a big announcement. And if you have some ideas, send them our way. And yeah, so that would be a great idea. I'm gonna see if I can work on doing that, having the players sign the posters as well. For the games. I know when I went to Syracuse basketball games, they used to do that with the player posters, and then if you had the opportunity to run into a player after the game, they would sign it. So that is a cool idea, and I have seen that in the past, and that's a cool thing when it does happen. So hopefully we can work on that. And I think we ran a little bit past that hour time for tonight, but again, special episode 50. Thank you everybody for joining us. But until next time, and we got the fans doing this too now. Until next time, be great and instigate. Thank you everybody for episode 50. We'll continue to be back. Until next time, be great and instigate.